Hello and welcome to the Modern Homesteading Podcast. This is your host, Rachel Jameson. Today we are going to talk about the homestead kitchen. This is part of a series that I started way last winter when I wasn't as busy. And the first part of the series was my kitchen tools that are not powered. I use a lot of kitchen hand tools. A lot of people prefer a more modern technique. I prefer the peace and quiet of using my wooden spoon and a metal bowl to make cookies. However, I do have some kitchen tools that are powered. So at that time, I had talked about making a second podcast with that. And because I don't have a ton of tools, I thought it would be kind of boring. However, when I started doing some of my kitchen prep and stuff this year for some of my canning and food drying, I realized I have a few more tools than most people have, but maybe not. I just use mine a lot. Everything that I've had for a very long time, and it has been tried and tested. Now, that said, there's nothing wrong with you just going to your big box store and getting a thrifty version or getting some at a garage sale to purchase and use, because obviously we all know that we should just be using what we have. So I'm not proposing that people go and spend lots of money to buy lots of gadgets. They definitely help you, but they definitely do not make the homestead kitchen a possibility. You can do a homestead kitchen, like we always say, where you're at with what you have. So anyways, that said, we will start the podcast. One of my updates this week is that last week we had the walls poured on our new homestead. It was really, really strange to see it. It was a little surreal. One of the things I was really surprised about, and I'm pretty good at visualizing things and visualizing size. You know, my husband and I will move furniture around and he'll say it won't fit there. And I'll say, oh yeah, it will fit there. I can tell. And it'll fit there. I'm just good with that. But when we got the basement in, I realized that we're going to have to clear more brush and trees for gardens. I just don't have enough space. And I thought that we were going to have plenty. Not that 20 acres isn't plenty, but we had only cleared a small portion because I wanted to only clear what we needed. And anyways, in my mind's eye, we needed to clear less than what we do need to clear. So anyways, that's going to be a process. I'm realizing that this whole garden and moving everything is going to be a multi-year journey, which in my heart, I knew it would be. In my mind, I could convince myself that we could speed up the process, but I don't think we can. We're trying, but I don't think we can. So anyways, that is my update for this week. On the homestead here, I have been battling Japanese beetles, which I think everybody's battling everywhere. My approach to pests is not eliminate them all. And I know that sounds strange, but I believe that everything operates in balance. So I kind of let them do their thing and have been watching them. Here I can watch them. Out at the property, we did put up some pheromone traps, which can cause them to actually be attracted and you to get more of them. So my pheromone traps are quite a ways from my orchard. And I also put on basically wetting tool or very thin fabric over all of my trees. So they all look like a bunch of Q-tips sitting out of the ground. And it has helped. They're small enough for me to still be able to do that. And so the beetles could not get to them. But here I'm able to watch them because I'm here almost daily. And I have kind of let them go. I don't have a huge infestation. I have a few. So basically what I've been doing is just going out with soapy water and dunking them in some soapy water. They've done some damage. For some reason, they really like what I've noticed here is they really like grape leaves and raspberry leaves. That seems to be what they have hit the most here. I'm trying to think if I saw them in anything else. Something has been eating my horseradish leaves, and it's a bug, and I'm not sure what it was. Maybe it's those too. So anyway, My approach is usually balance. Yesterday when I was in the garden, we have this patch of mint that has taken over a hill. We have tried to eradicate the mint multiple times, and it is invasive. It's just invasive here on my property now with the soil fertility I have. Basically, all we can do is keep it at bay. So anyways, one of the things that's really interesting is if you follow my friend Craig Schaff, which some of you may have gone and followed him on Telegram, he's no longer there, but he's one of my mentors. He has a site on Gab. When he talks about parasitic wasps and how helpful they are for certain things. Well, over in my massive amount of mint, which has flowered, the bees adore mint. I had multiple species of bees and wasps, and one of them was one of those huge parasitic wasps, which can help with, I believe it was, I could be wrong, I believe it was squash bugs. And I don't know if they do anything to Japanese beetles. I know they have very few predators. One of them is a wren. I also have a very large bird population here. I'm hoping to get a large bird population where we go. We do not have a large bird population out in the woods, which blows my mind with all the trees. But here we have a huge bird population. And it's because I have a number of flowers and the soil is amazing and we get lots of worms and stuff in the soil. So the birds just love our yard with the berries and the flowers and the bugs for them to eat. So anyways, it's creating a whole ecosystem, this well-rounded ecosystem. And if you kill all of your predator animals, it's just my opinion. And maybe it's science. I don't, my mind is like a sieve and I forget a lot of what I read and look into. But I've also been super busy and I haven't been able to read a lot. But it's my opinion that if you kill everything, then your good bugs don't have anything to feed off of. I mean, we all know that ladybugs hunt aphids. That's that circle. And if you get rid of the aphids, well, the ladybugs don't have anything. So I think it's important to have a balance and not to freak out, but to just kind of step back and observe before you worry too much about seeing a single bug. Obviously, if you're getting a huge infestation while you're working on balancing your land, it's important to probably eradicate that. So anyway, that is my updates here on this homestead and on the new homestead. I will update again later. I think I have an interview coming up soon with someone, and then I can update you more when I have a podcast with Harold. So getting into the Homestead kitchen power tools, I think one of the pivotal things in your Homestead kitchen is probably your mixer for many people. I don't use mine a lot, but we also don't eat a lot of bread and cookies and baked goods, which is normally what you use your mixer for. I have a KitchenAid. I love a KitchenAid. This is my second KitchenAid. My first one we ruined by we bought an attachment, which was a meat grinder. This was years ago. I mean, gosh, 15 or 18 years ago at this point. And it was the small mixer, and we had bought the attachment that you can grind meat with, and we had gotten a deer, and we probably overdid it. I think those probably work well if you're doing small amounts of meat, like a chicken breast here and there, making some ground beef here and there, but to do a whole animal like a venison or a deer that's usually like 35 pounds of meat, it just overdid it, and we fried the mixer. We ruined it. So we went and got another one, a little bit nicer one, and I have used that since. I think that a mixer is really excellent for a homestead, especially if you're doing a lot of baking. Now, I used to do a lot of baking when the kids were home, when we weren't eating less grain than we are now. I don't know if I recommend any of the attachments. I can't speak to that. I'm a little bit leery of putting any of the attachments on it now, like the maybe a pasta maker or something like that. I don't know, but there's many attachments that you can plug into that front end, and everybody's probably seen pictures of that. We have avoided those because I burned up my last one, and we have just saved my mixer for mixing. One of the things I'm really happy that they did is recently, I don't know how recently, but they have updated the metal blades to be stainless. They did not used to be stainless. They used to be other metals, which when they chipped could potentially cause some metal toxicity. So they have updated the metal blades to be stainless. One of my favorite things about this thing is how easy it is to clean. The blades are super easy to clean. You flip it up, you can clean the underside of it. The bowl's super easy to clean. I just love mine. Now, a lot of people have other brands, and maybe if I baked more, I would be interested in getting something like a Bosch. I have a couple of friends that bake a lot that have really large families, and they say you just can't beat them for really, really large batches. I don't have one, but it's something you also might want to look into if you're making large batches of cookies, large batches of like mashed potatoes, large batches of bread. I think it holds like 22 cups or something crazy. So anyways, I have a KitchenAid and I love it. The other thing is if you like to have a fun kitchen, you can get just about every color known to man in your KitchenAid. And they do have a lot of attachments. But like I said, be careful when you buy those and look into it before you use them a lot, because it was a lot of money to burn up when we ruined it. So my next one is, I didn't know what category to put this in. So it's my Ninja, a food processor, grinder, mixer. You can mix with this. It does come with like a plasticky like dough hook that doesn't cut but just mixes. Mine has the multiple bowls. So I have 2 smoothie cups with the blades, which are very sharp, by the way. And then I have a bigger cup mixer that that's where you can put the plastic mixer. So you could probably mix cookie dough or something in it, or a small loaf of bread, possibly. I don't know if it needs. It would probably do gluten-free bread, because gluten-free bread and wheat bread definitely have a different texture, knead differently, pour differently, etc. They're more, gluten-free bread is more of a batter. So I'm not sure if you could actually knead bread with it, but it chops, it cuts. I make smoothies with this thing almost daily. I do a smoothie in it. You can crush ice with it. You can make iced coffees. It literally will liquefy just about everything. I will put like huge batches of herbs in there that I definitely want to just mince and pulverize and then put in my dehydrator. I use it a lot. I'm very happy with it. I don't think I would ever get anything else. In fact, this is my second one as well. My first one I burned up after probably 18 years. I mean, I used the heck out of it daily. And then I upgraded to this bigger one, and I just love it. The other thing that I feel like is really important on a homestead, and this might be something I end up doing a topic on, and I probably will, but it's pretty deep, and it'll probably end up being a couple series. And I know I've said that about fat, but we're actually going to be doing an interview talking about fat, and I think that will take care of the whole fat podcast that I have talked about doing multiple times. But with this grain one, I don't see a lot of people talking about what I do with grain, at least in podcasts and stuff like that, and teaching people how to do it. Because when I started doing it, I was really confused. I'd read a lot, but still couldn't find the information I needed. So anyways, but a grain grinder. It's kind of an expensive thing. It's an added step for sure. But if your family eats grain, and if you feed your family a lot of grain, which a lot of people do, I'm not going to look down on it. Some families can do this and remain completely healthy. It was not something that we could do. That said, just buying flour from the store, you're getting flour that has sat around for a long time and reduced in nutritional quality. You're getting added things like folic acid and other vitamins that they add to it They've removed the bran, just so many things as to why freshly ground grain is so much better for you. The enzymes are there. It just does not lose things in the process of aging. Plus, if you end up getting more expensive grains, my gluten-free grains are at least half the cost of buying gluten-free flour. If you end up getting stuff like kamut, I could be saying that wrong, eichhorn, those kinds of ancient grains, I suspect that it's probably also cheaper for you to grind it instead of buying the flour. And the other thing is the grain is a perfect storage. A whole grain stored in a 5-gallon bucket with oxygen absorbers and moisture absorbers will store for a very long time, where a flour will quickly lose nutritional value. So I have anywhere from 2 to 5-gallon buckets full of rice and millet and things like that stored for when we use it. The other reason to have a grain grinder and grind your own grain is you can sprout that grain and then turn it into the most dense food that it possibly can be for a grain. And that exact subject is the subject that I want to get into in another podcast. So anyways, the one that I have is called a Wonder Mill. Now, I don't believe it's a great grain grinder, but I don't believe it is top of the line. I believe it is kind of an introductory grain grinder. Now, I do have a hand grain grinder. It was much cheaper. If you want to get into it and give it a whirl, that might be something you want to try, or you might want to find a friend that has a grain grinder. Of course, if you're gluten-free, never, ever, ever, ever use a grain grinder that was used for anything else. You're never going to get all the gluten out of it. But mine is a Wonder Mill. It works perfectly well. I have used the heck out of it. I really, really like it. I have ground rice, sorghum, millet, buckwheat, teff, beans in it. You can grind it more fine or less fine. With rice, it does not get fine enough. One of the issues with gluten-free baking is you end up with a little bit denser of a bread. So this is one of the reasons I want to upgrade. But one of my complaints about the Wonder Mill is it's very loud. It is dusty, and the grinder is metal. I want to switch to a stone grinder for multiple reasons. One, when the flour comes out of mine currently, it's pretty warm. It's pretty hot. So it warms up the grain as it's grinding, and you lose some of that nutritional value. Plus, I don't know if you have noticed lately, but in the news, if you follow any natural health people, we have noticed more and more that a lot of our foods have heavy metals in them, like lead being one of them. One of the suspicions is that it's the process in which we are grinding things. We're using metal, and tiny little pieces of the metal things are coming off. Now, could there be lead in the stones? Yes, there could be. I don't know if Nutrimil, which is the mill that I want to get next, tests their stones or not. It's something I might reach out and ask them about. But it's also the heating process. The stones don't heat up as much, and which kills enzymes and all that kind of stuff. So, this is, again, something I'm going to look into deeply and do a podcast about probably this fall or this winter when I have a little more time to do some research. But I do think a grain grinder is an amazing thing to start with. One of the things about Wonder Mill is it's fairly affordable. If you don't have to be gluten-free, it's probably possible for you to find a used mill somewhere that somebody had and no longer wants. So Anyways, I think it's a great addition to the homestead. It allows you to have a very deep pantry and store things for long periods of time, save money, and get the most nutrition out of the grain that you get. Another thing that has made my life so much easier that I also use, maybe not daily, but almost weekly, not even almost weekly, probably 2 or 3 times a week, a lot in the winter. In the summer, it's definitely less, is my Instant Pot. I have the older version. It's a 7-in-1 version. Instant Pots can do, what can't they do? I mean, really, you could probably use it. You could use it to fry in because they do have a setting where you can saute and cook. You can make yogurt, although it is cooked yogurt. It's not raw yogurt. You can hard boil eggs in them. I pressure cook eggs and hard boiled eggs in mine. You can make bone broth. You can use it as a crock pot. Some of them even have air fryer settings. Now there's a new one out that I noticed has a sous vide option. I think if I upgraded my Instant Pot, I would probably get the one that has a sous vide option, because I have recently had sous vide pork tenderloin at a friend's house, and it was absolutely amazing. I don't know much about sous vide other than I know that it cooks to a certain temperature and holds it there, and it just makes the meat very tender and very juicy. So it's absolutely amazing. There's probably other versions out there of the Instant Pot. An Instant Pot basically is a pressure cooker, or it used to be only just a pressure cooker. Of course, now they do so much more. In the past, it was the replacement for that counter, or for that stovetop pressure cooker that all of our grandparents used to make like mashed potatoes and stuff in. But the Instant Pot, what I love so much about it is you can set and forget. You can walk away from it. It will keep things warm for hours and hours. So you can, if you're working like me, you can get up, you can put your food in it. It can cook it while you're gone, and you come home and the food is still warm. What's better than that? It's just perfect for the busy homestead. What I also like about it is the bowls in them are stainless steel. That's a big thing for me. A lot of our food and cookware has toxins in it. I really like that these have stainless steel. They also have multiple options of things that you can put inside of it. I have a double-decker egg thing, so I can basically hard boil, quote unquote, eggs in it. And I think it holds a dozen eggs. So I can hard boil a dozen eggs at a time in there. I have a couple of them that have steam baskets and you can add multiple layers inside of it to cook things, to keep things like out of the liquid at the bottom. And then of course you can make yogurt. It's not raw yogurt, but it has so many settings. It's pretty unbelievable. So I do think, obviously I think that's a great thing to add to the homestead. I'm kind of new to this next one, which is using an air fryer. We have learned to really, really like it for meat, especially right now when it's been super hot outside and nobody wants to stand outside and grill. And we've had things going on to the point where we don't have the grill handy on the back porch like we usually do. So we have been resorting to the air fryer, and it's actually been really nice. I've been making a lot of wings, and they've just been really amazing. Now the one we have is pretty small. What I do not like about it is that it has the nonstick Teflon. So I have purchased the brown, what do you call those? The parchment paper, the unbleached parchment paper that goes inside of them. I've used those, although it's still not ideal. You're still heating up that nonstick. But what I have is the Ninja air fryer. It's a 5-quart. Now, they do have new ones that are bigger. I don't know if I'll get one or not, because I hate taking up counter space, and I'm moving to actually a kitchen that is half the size that I have now. But what I might do is upgrade my air fryer. So I don't have this next one, which is a toaster oven / air fryer, but I have used it multiple times because one of the houses I work at, I often will cook as well. So I clean at their house and I do a lot of other things, but sometimes I'll cook too. They have this toaster oven air fryer, so I have used it a lot and I really like it. This toaster air fryer is stainless inside, which I love that it's stainless. I do not like, as you know, I do not like things that are not stainless inside, especially when you're heating them up. So, and I also like that this serves both purposes of a air fryer and a toaster oven. And this is a Cuisinart. It has multiple ranges. You can also use it as an oven. It's not very big, but you could definitely, if it's just a couple of, you could definitely cook a couple of potatoes in it, cook a small roast. It's a convection oven / pizza oven. Anyways, I really like it. It's actually pretty affordable considering it's a Cuisinart. It does take up counter space. But I like that it's two things. Like I said, I've used it multiple times at the place that I work at someone's house that I clean. My biggest frustration with the toaster oven air fryer is cleaning up. It's horrible to clean up. As you know, when you air fry and when you fry anything, you get grease that really gets stuck on things. And it's just a pain to clean. I don't love that that they're a pain to clean. However, they're just such a useful tool. And I love that. We love making homemade fries from our potatoes that we grew with quality oils. I love being able to crisp up meat and stuff like that, like wings. So anyways, I do think that if you're looking for an air fryer, I love the fact that this is a toaster oven / air fryer and that it's stainless. And it's under $100. So not too bad. This next thing is something I use a ton, almost a daily basis, I would say, anytime I bake. So a digital scale. And while it's not something you plug into the wall, it is powered. It uses batteries. This is a KitchenAid scale, which I do like. When I cook gluten-free, most of my recipes now, especially when I'm using sourdough, which I often use sourdough discard recipes now because I like the idea that the grain was fermented and made more bioavailable. I have to weigh. A lot of my recipes are in grams now. It does make for a more consistent baked good. However, I was making fairly consistent baked goods before I started weighing them. It just so happens that a lot of the recipes that include sourdough include weights. So anyways, I have a KitchenAid scale. What I really like about this scale is it does ounces, grams, liquid, and it has an option for liquid measures. I also like that it has a knob that you turn from grams to scale to ounces. I've had another one and the buttons wore out after a while. So I really like this. It's actually not that expensive for KitchenAid. I like that the top is glass and you can just wipe it off. It's only like $16 right now, but I really, really like it. You're going to see that I have a lot of KitchenAid equipment. It just so happens that that's how it worked out. I really like the product. We've had a lot of good luck with the product. They make a quality product. So it's what we have gone with a lot in our kitchen. And I like a digital scale too, because you can use it for things like herbs, for things like packing things up into bags for making herbal recipes. Just so many reasons to have a scale in your kitchen, which I didn't for years. I don't know how I did it before, because honestly, now that I have it, I use it all the time. So anyways, that's the other thing. The next thing I have on here is a vacuum sealer. Now, the vacuum sealer we have is actually pretty old, which actually speaks to its durability, but it's no longer being sold. The closest thing I could find to it was the model that I have listed here, and it is a vacuum sealer. It's a Food Saver, sorry. It is a Food Saver brand, which is a pretty well-known brand. And this one basically, it's almost exactly like the one we have with a couple of little differences in that it's black. Ours is white. But we just have used the heck out of it and we've never had any issues with it. Um, I think the biggest issue we've had with the bags is the bags breaking seals. So one of the things that we learned, if you're using pokey things, maybe some herbs, meat with a bone in it, when you're packing it, you need to either use some wax paper or some kind of butcher paper or something around that pointy part when you load it, and then it doesn't break the seal. Um, we just have had no issues. Of course, the bags are plastic, supposedly a safe plastic, but we use this a lot. I think it works really, really well, especially for if you're doing meat and freezing meat a lot. It helps avoid, the frost issues that you get with meat. I use it a lot with herbs. Once I get them really, really dry as I possibly can, we will often vacuum seal them to keep the air out and keep them from getting moldy. So I just feel like that's a really important part, especially if you're preserving things. People do also use them for sous vide. So with sous vide, you actually don't submerge the meat or whatever it is you're cooking is submersed in water, but it doesn't get wet because you have it in some kind of a package. I think if I do sous vide, I would probably use silicone, but I'd make sure it was a high quality silicone. So anyways, that's what I have there. Dehydrators. Oh man, I really have a love affair with my Excalibur 9 trays. I have two of them. One of them I was fortunate enough to find at a garage sale, and the other one I did purchase myself. I just love them. One of the reasons I like the Excalibur over the stackable ones is your dehydrator can be used for many things if it's a box that you remove the trays from. So a lot of people make raw yogurt in them. A lot of people will raise bread in them. People will ferment things in them. You can remove the trays and only have one or two in there if you have something that needs to be dehydrated that's super fluffy. I just love mine. Now, the Excalibur has many, many options. You can get glass doors, you can get timers, you can get fancy digital things. I tend to go with simplicity when it comes to my gadgets because it's less things to break. I have the Excalibur that is just a dial on it with the heat. So it gives you multiple options for the temperature that you want to dehydrate at. And that is all. None of it's digital. I don't have timers, nothing on it. I have one dial on it, and you plug it in and it turns on. It has the plain old boring front door that you can't see through. I didn't see the point in spending all the money for the extra things. I like simplicity, and I like things that don't break as easily. And we have had multiple digital things where computers have gone bad and all that kind of stuff. So I tend to go towards simplicity. So that's what I have. And I have two Excalibur dehydrators. I absolutely love them. I use them nonstop all fall for a lot of herbs, vegetables. I've actually really started enjoying doing a lot of vegetables that way instead of freezing. And we do, of course, our fair share of jerky. And what else do I dehydrate in them? I'm trying to think. Mostly food, I would say. We do some herbs, obviously. And I have done yogurt in it. It holds multiple jars if you wanted to make raw yogurt. The Instant Pot does make yogurt, but obviously cooks it way too high. I think around, it's probably somewhere around 140, where the Excalibur dehydrator, it can be whatever temperature that you would like it to be. Raw would be, I believe it's under 110. Don't quote me on that. But under 110 ferment would be considered raw yogurt. The next thing that I use fairly often is my immersion blender. Now I have two. One I bought at a garage sale, and it's not a fancy version. I use that for making soap and only for making soap, obviously, because soap. I don't know what brand that is. It was cheapy. I didn't care. I just wanted one that I only use for soap. Now my one that I use in the kitchen is, again, a KitchenAid. I use my immersion blender for making mayonnaise. I use it for when I make soups and stews. We often don't use flours, but I will add things like cauliflower, things like fat, things like the elbows of chicken bones that are collagen-y but not bones, spices and herbs and onions, and sometimes like cauliflower or something like that into the broth, and then I will puree it, and it will thicken the broth without adding the extra calories. Plus, you get all of that collagen in what you normally probably wouldn't chew on with like chicken bones. And we pay a ton of money to get quality chicken from some friends, and I use every part of that. So this KitchenAid, it's simple. It does have a couple of speeds on it. There's nothing special about them. Of course, you can get ones that have other accessories. Mine is just your simple KitchenAid variable speed immersion blender, and I like it. It's not the cheapest one out there, but I have used the heck out of it, and it just keeps going and going and going. I like it because the end of it is stainless steel. My one that I use for soap is plastic. The end of it is with stainless steel blade, probably, or some kind of metal blade, but it's for soap. So anyways, I use this a lot for soups and stews and making mayonnaise and, I don't know, like dressings and stuff like that, because we make all of our own dressings and everything. This next one I put in here, it's kind of funny. It really doesn't have a ton of uses, but I put it in here because as homesteaders, I think very few of us probably do not drink coffee or tea. It's our morning go juice. And I have this little milk frother that I use. I use it to make my own lattes, and you can use it to make tea lattes like chai, or you can use it in your coffee. When I make my lattes, I actually use raw egg yolk, one or two of them, froth it together with some heavy cream and either some honey or stevia, and then I add it to my coffee. It's my morning B vitamin boost, and I love it. This one is also battery operated because I actually have taken it with me places. And speaking of coffee, of course, the next one on my list is a coffee grinder plus spice grinder. So I use this for harder things. I could use my Ninja, but I have found when I use my Ninja, because the bowls and the mixer part, the bowls that you do it in are plastic, it scratches the heck out of them. And then they're etched and things get caught in it, and it makes them harder to clean. So I switched to, instead of doing it in that, to doing it in my KitchenAid coffee spice grinder. So this one that I have listed actually comes with two bowls. Make sure that you separate them, because I can tell you that I've accidentally used the pepper one. I've accidentally used it after I have done spices, thinking that it was coffee in there, and it was pepper. That was an interesting cup of coffee. So anyways, make sure you mark them too. But it comes with two bowls, and I just switch them out when I'm doing spices versus when I'm doing coffee. I really like it. It's stainless steel. The bowls they don't get damaged like they do with the plastic with my Ninja, which easily grinds things up. But when you use like a peppercorns, it beats the heck out of the sides. So, coffee grinder, spice grinder works great for those spices and things. And so now we're getting to things that are more fun to have, but probably not used as much here in my home. Um, Although that said, we do use the popcorn popper a ton. It's one of the grains that we do eat. I love a popcorn popper because I like making my own popcorn where I choose what ingredients go in it. So when you get microwave popcorn, number one, you have to use the microwave, which I do use, but I know it's probably not the best thing in the world for us. But number two, you don't get to choose the oils. When we do popcorn here at home, we use a quality oil. We are usually either using butter, tallow, or avocado oil to make our popcorn. And then you can also choose your popcorn. You can use, there's so many different varieties of popcorn, and you could even grow it. But this is the West Bend Stir Crazy popcorn. It's the one that, it has a little stirry thing at the bottom of it, and the popcorn pops into the clear plastic bowl. Kids love to watch it. Again, one of my biggest issues with this is it does have the nonstick base that you heat up, which isn't my favorite, but we use it a lot. We also use an ice cream maker a lot. Now, I currently don't have a raw milk supply very close by, but we make a lot of ice cream ourselves. I don't buy it. I actually make my own ice cream because I don't add any sugar to mine. It's sweet enough for me just to have the cream. And then mine is raw also, so I will put raw eggs in it. The heavy cream is not raw. I'm hoping to get closer to having ice cream again that is completely raw. And then my family just makes ingredients that they like. Now my daughter is the queen of making butter pecan ice cream. When I did my interview with Kelly the Kitchen Cop, she actually posted my daughter's butter pecan ice cream recipe, and it's amazing if you use crispy pecans, and she doubles the butter. It is so good. But this is a Cuisinart ice cream maker machine. It's like 1.5 quarts, and it's the one where you freeze the big heavy disc thing in a deep freezer. We have found one of the quirks with this is they don't work very good if you have upright freezers. For some reason, the upright freezer doesn't get as cold. This disc thing works really well if you get it down in a deep freezer and get it really ice cold. You get really good ice cream that way. So we really like that. The problem is it makes only 1.5 quarts, and you have to get it in the freezer. You can't make 2 batches with that. So what you get is what you get, unless you maybe buy a second of the bowl disc thingies that you freeze. I suppose then you could make 2 different kinds. So what we also have is the 4-quart ice cream maker, which is the one that you think of traditionally when you think of traditionally making ice cream. Ours, you have the outside, the wood outside, and then you add the ice into the salt, and then you add your stuff in the center. And ours is plug-in. A lot of the old school ones were hand crank. Ours is plug-in, and you use that to make your ice cream. So the problem with this, of course, is you have to have ice and salt. It's not as easy to use, but it does make a gallon. It makes a nice gallon. So if you have a larger family and you want to make bigger ice cream or yogurt, you might want to get the bigger one. Another thing that we use a lot is our waffle maker. So we use the waffle maker for more than just making waffles. We make some keto waffles, and sometimes they have it's basically just eggs and cheese. And we will use those as bread, or we'll use those as a pizza instead of grain. But mine is a Cuisinart again. Again, the thing I don't like about it is the nonstick on the waffle part, and I don't love that. I do have a cast iron one that is heavy, 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 and I could use it on my stovetop to make waffles. But we also make some really yummy gluten-free sourdough waffles. I tend to make those in large batches and then freeze them for quick breakfasts and use those with maple syrup. Again, it's not something we use a ton of, but it is one of the electric appliances in our home that save us money because we don't buy any food for the most part that comes in a package. It's all handmade here, which saves a lot of money, but we also get more nutrition out of it because of how we prepare it. So these next two things are very expensive. You may or may not ever need them on your homestead. It depends on the size of your homestead. We actually use them even though we do not have animals yet to process. And it is our meat grinder and our meat slicer. However, our meat grinder has paid for itself even with just hunting. So my husband is an avid hunter. I have started joining him hunting. That's one of the things I can't wait for our life to slow down and be on one homestead because I will be hunting with him more. Right now, it's been really hard the last several years for me to do it. Number one, we had kids at home, and then number two, it just was really hard. So we have the LEM. We have the LEM Big Bite Dual Grind 1 horsepower meat grinder. It says that it's ideal for heavy use. I would definitely say that it is. We have had it, I think, 5 or 6 years, and we have ran tons and tons of stuff through it. So we've ran lots of venison through it. We have bought things at the store. Instead of getting the meat already ground up for burgers and stuff like that, we have actually started buying whole chunks of meat when we buy them at the store. We've actually bought animals only halved from friends and then came home and processed them ourselves how we wanted it. It's fantastic if you want to make your own sausage, your own hamburger, all that kind of stuff. Sometimes it's actually cheaper to buy if you're just getting it at the store, even if it's cheaper to buy bigger chunks of meat and then grind them themselves. The one reason we got this bigger one, and this was before we even dreamed we were going to be able to get acreage and have our own animals, because we will be processing our own animals. We will not be taking them to a facility to be processed. It's something we actually enjoy doing, and we're pretty good at. Maybe not making the best cuts or anything, but we're pretty good at doing it in a timely manner and doing it together, and we enjoy doing that. So anyways, it's making dog food. And we got this one specifically because it will grind chicken bones. So we make the dog's food, and it has whole parts of chicken in it. And we run the chicken legs and chicken thigh with bone and skin and everything on right through it. It has no problems. It doesn't slow it down a bit. And then the dogs get all of that nutrition from the bone meal and everything all in that. So that's one of the reasons we bought that. Now I realize it's very expensive. It might be something that you want to buy together with a couple of people and share. My biggest complaint with this, it is so heavy. Like, my husband is a pretty strong guy, but there's no way I can lift this up the stairs. We store it in our basement and we bring it upstairs when we use it. I don't know what it weighs. I don't know if it says on here what it weighs. It's heavy. So it's a pain. It's a pain to haul up and down the stairs and store. It says it's 50 pounds. Boy, it feels heavier than that, but it's also big and clunky. And the box is huge. So, because I can throw around 50 pounds of dog food. But anyway, that's my biggest complaint. Cleanup is a bit of an issue. But otherwise, we have no complaints. We have used this a lot. And when we move, we are going to have a permanent place for it. So we no longer have to worry about moving it because it's quite heavy. So with that, we also ended up purchasing a meat slicer. I make some cured meat. I have started making some lunch meats and stuff like that because we kind of missed them. And right now we don't We don't buy lunch meats. Number one, they're expensive. Number two, they're often full of gluten. And number three, didn't we just have a huge recall of a bunch of lunch meat for, was it listeria? I can't remember. That's why. It's full of preservatives. We just have stopped using it. Now, the one we have, I could list, but nobody's probably going to buy it. The one we have new was like $3,500. We did not pay that for it. We got it at a going out of business sale from a deli, and we got a killer price and deal on it because we had to buy a new blade, but we didn't even come close to paying. I think we paid $200 for it, and then we ended up having to pay, I don't know what we paid for the blade, but we paid less than $500 even after we got the blade and a cord fix on it and stuff. So definitely. But LEM makes some really good products. So I put the LEM Big Bite commercial meat slicer on here. I mean, you can slice cheese, you can slice meat, you can start making your own lunch meat, you can do some cured salamis, some cured meats. There's some really great recipes out there for curing meat. And I had those books, those books are in some of the podcasts that we have already done. It makes it really easy. There's a bunch of YouTube videos out there on how to do it. But you can get away from a lot of those preservatives, a lot of the questionable things that are added to lunch meats, and the expense when you start to do these things yourselves. So anyways, we have that meat grinder. And then I wanted to add something that is probably one of my next purchases, because we're going to be processing our own animals, and because my vacuum sealer has started to show age and wear. We have used the heck out of it. It's probably, I don't know, it's at least 10 years old. It might be older than that. And we have used it a lot. And instead, I may switch to a chamber vac, which does the same thing, but way, way better. So when you go to the butcher and you get meat that's in those, that thicker plastic where it's really vacuum sealed really, really well, and it doesn't come undone, that's a chamber vac. Multiple reasons why I want to get a chamber vac is I have read that you can use it for many things. Number one, obviously the seal is better than when you get vacuum seal. Number two, chamber vacs, you can do multiple packages at one time. Number three, with a chamber vac, I can then start to do some retort canning, which I have never talked about. But retort canning is when you go to the store and you get like the tuna fish in the foil pack or the chicken in the foil pack, that's retort canning. You have to have a chamber vac to do that. And you have to use specific types of bags to do that. But those bags, number one, are unbreakable. You can take them backpacking. You can take them on vacation. You can put them in your purse. You can keep them in your car. Doesn't matter if they freeze. Obviously, anytime you get varying temperatures, your food goes to waste quicker. But it's unlike the canning jar that is so breakable and so easy to break. And you have to worry about freezing, especially where I live. It means that I can keep food in my car with me. I can take it on planes and on vacation with me. And if any of you have listened to this podcast long enough, you understand that I cannot eat out. I can't trust other people's food. So when we go away, it becomes a huge thing for me to have to bring food everywhere I go. This would just make my life easier. The other thing is because the bags are foil and they are not exposed to sunlight, the product inside, they store a lot longer, sometimes up to 5 years instead of a year to 18 months in a canning jar. That said, it is something that you have to continually buy the packaging for. I'm not sure, and I have not looked into what the packaging consists of and if there's any toxins involved. Obviously, when you have glass jars, it's one of the most ideal containers because it's almost always safe. some of the new canning jars you do have to watch. They do have lead in them. I believe one of the companies might be fixing it, but there was lead in one of the companies that put out canning jars. So it's something I want to look into. I'm not 100% sure on which company it was. So I don't want to name names and then give the company a bad name. Just look into it. I'm 99.9% sure Ball Company jars were all safe. So anyways, I want to get a chamber vac. They're not cheap, but it's something that we might invest in the future. There's very, very expensive ones. And then there is the one that I have on here listed, and it's a decent one for somebody that's not going to be packaging and selling to people. Now, we might have family come and help us do things, and they would take food home and stuff like that. But I'm not going to be selling. I don't see that in our future. But it's the Vevor chamber vacuum sealer, and it's about $250. So anyways, these are great additions to the Homestead kitchen. If you're new to cooking, or you're new to homesteading, or you're new to preserving food, these might be some things that you have. A lot of people have more gadgets than this. I prefer simple, gadgety life. Our cooking is fairly simple and uncomplicated. I hope that this helps some of you make some decisions on what you do and don't need. Again, I have almost all of these. I actually have hand-powered versions for, because I do like simplicity. And we live in an area of the country where we don't get tornadoes and we don't get earthquakes and we don't get hurricanes, but we do get blizzards and lots of snow. And we have times where we didn't have power for a very long time. So we have put duplicity in our life, and a lot of our things have multiple uses, and we have non-powered options to be able to do things. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. It's maybe not as informative as others, and maybe some people will enjoy my reviews of some of these and why I chose what I did, and maybe you won't. But I think that's it. And like I said, next week we're going to be talking to someone about animal fats and, I believe, soap. And so I'm excited for that podcast. Until then, I'd like to tell everybody to grow where you're planted.